a tiny African island nation suddenly became one of the biggest surprises in world football, standing face to face with some of the strongest teams on the planet. But that is only the beginning. This is also a country known for its striking Creole beauty, where African Portuguese and island heritage have blended for centuries, creating some of the most unique faces and cultures in the Atlantic. So how did this forgotten volcanic archipelago, sitting alone off the coast of West Africa, become one of Africa's most underrated success stories? Today, we are traveling across unseen Cape Verde, a country of black sand beaches, volcanic peaks, colorful towns, beautiful people, powerful music, and a story far bigger than most travelers ever imagine. If you look at a map, Cape Verde can seem almost invisible, just a handful of tiny dots floating in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. But these small islands have quietly touched global history for more than 500 years. Located about 350 miles off the coast of Senegal, Cape Verde is made up of 10 volcanic islands, and 9 of them are inhabited. Altogether, the country covers only about 1,560 square miles, making it one of the smallest nations in Africa, both in land size and population. But do not let the size fool you. One island may feel like a peaceful beach resort with soft sand and blue water. Another can look like the set of a dramatic volcano movie, with black rock steep slopes and villages living under the shadow of fire. That is the strange beauty of Cape Verde. Every island feels like a different chapter of the same Atlantic story. And what makes this country even more unusual is this. Before Europeans arrived, Cape Verde had no indigenous population. When Portuguese explorers reached the islands in 1460, they found an empty archipelago, no kingdoms, no tribes, no ancient cities, no native civilization already living there. In a very real sense, Cape Verde was built from scratch. Today, the country has only around 500,000 people, but the Cape Verdean world is much larger than the islands themselves. Millions of Cape Verdeans and people of Cape Verdean origin live abroad, especially in Portugal, France, the Netherlands, the United States, and many other places. In many families, someone has left the islands to work overseas, and the money sent back home plays a major role in daily life. Cape Verde was once a Portuguese colony, and that history is still visible everywhere in the language. The old buildings, the food, Catholic traditions, and even the names of streets. Portuguese is the official language, but in everyday life, most people speak Cape Verdean Creole, also known as Creole. And here is something interesting. Creole is not exactly the same on every island. Each island has its own flavor, accent, rhythm, and local expressions. So if you ever visit Cape Verde, try greeting people with modiki busta, meaning "How are you?" or say "Muito prazer," meaning "Nice to meet you." On these islands, a few local words can go a long way. There is also a famous Cape Verdean idea called morabeza. It is hard to translate perfectly, but it means something like warmth, kindness, hospitality, and the easygoing spirit of the islands. It is the feeling you get when someone welcomes you with a smile, invites you to sit down, and makes you feel like time does not need to move so fast. Another thing travelers should know is the money. Cape Verde uses the Cape Verdean escudo, and taking this currency out of the country is illegal. You also cannot easily buy it abroad and bring it in. But the euro is widely accepted across the islands, so carrying some euro cash is usually a smart idea. That is what makes Cape Verde so fascinating. It is not just a tropical paradise. It is a country shaped by slavery, colonization, migration, drought, music, faith, and the endless Atlantic Ocean. So what about you? Had you ever heard of Cape Verde before this video? And where in the world are you watching from? Share it in the comments below. To understand the real Cape Verde, the journey has to begin on Santiago, the largest and most populated island in the country. This is where Cape Verde feels less like a postcard and more like a living nation. The island has beaches, mountains, valleys, old villages, busy roads, and the capital city Praia, where politics, business street life, nightlife, and everyday struggles all meet beside the Atlantic. Praia is not the kind of capital that tries to impress you with giant skyscrapers. Its energy is more grounded than that. The best place to feel it is the plateau, the historic center of the city, where colonial-era buildings, government offices, churches, cafes, and busy streets sit above the coast. Walking through this area, you eventually reach Alexander Albuquerque Square at one end of Avenida Cinco de Julio. It is a small but pleasant public square with a fountain, a small statue, benches, food stalls, and an outdoor cafe where people stop to relax in the afternoon. It is not dramatic, but that is exactly why it feels real, a simple place where the city slows down for a moment. Nearby stands the Presidential Palace, a beautiful neoclassical building constructed in 1894. It was originally built for the Portuguese governor of Cape Verde, but after independence in 1975, it became the Presidential Palace. Visitors cannot enter the building, but from outside, it is still one of Praia's most elegant landmarks. Guards stand around the area, but people can usually take photos without trouble. From the southern edge of the plateau, there is another small but iconic site, Praia Rock. It sits below the cliffside, near a busy road, and has become one of those simple photo stops that travelers often remember. You walk along the sloping sidewalk, look back toward the city and the sea, and suddenly, Praia feels less like a capital and more like a coastal town built on windstone and history. But the city's real face becomes even clearer at places like Sucupira Market. This is where vendors sell clothes, food, household goods, imported products, and almost everything needed for daily life. It is crowded, noisy, colorful, and practical, not built for tourists, but for the people who actually live here. This is where Cape Verde stops feeling like an island fantasy and starts feeling like a real African city. And while walking through Praia, many visitors notice something else. the striking diversity of Cape Verdean women. People often describe them as some of the most beautiful in Africa, not because of one single look, but because Cape Verde itself is a meeting point of many worlds. Over centuries, African, Portuguese, and other Atlantic influences blended here, creating a rare Creole beauty. Dark skin, light brown skin, curly hair, straight hair, sharp features, soft features, and a natural island style that can feel both African and European at the same time. In countries like Nigeria, beauty is often associated with strong West African features. In Morocco, many people think of Mediterranean and North African elegance. But Cape Verde offers something different, a blend of both worlds shaped by ocean crossings, migration history, and island life. That mix is part of what makes the people here feel so unique. As the afternoon fades, Praia changes again. The city becomes softer, warmer, and more social. One of the best places to feel that relaxed coastal mood is Quebra Canela Beach, a clean beach with a calm, easygoing atmosphere. People come here to swim, walk, meet friends, or simply sit near the water while the Atlantic breeze moves through the city. Not far away, the Dona Maria Pia Lighthouse stands as another quiet symbol of Praia's connection to the sea. Built in 1881, this octagonal lighthouse has recently been renovated with plans to add a small museum. The lighthouse keeper is known for being welcoming and knowledgeable, often sharing stories about the history of the site and guiding visitors around the area. Entry is free, though leaving a small tip is a thoughtful gesture. Then the sun goes down, and Praia becomes a different city. By night, Praia is often considered the nightlife capital of Cape Verde. The evening may begin at beachside restaurants and bars, with music, grilled food, drinks, and conversations carried by the ocean wind. But later, the energy moves into open-air concerts, street parties, and crowded nightclubs. And here, standing still is almost a strange thing to do. Cape Verdeans love to dance, and parties can last until 5 or even 6 in the morning. Music fills the streets, coladeira, funana, kizomba, and other island rhythms, turning the city into a place that feels alive long after midnight. It is not just entertainment. It is part of how people connect, flirt, celebrate, forget stress, and carry the spirit of the islands into the night. But Santiago is not only Praia. Move beyond the capital, and the island opens into dry hills, fishing villages, banana valleys, mountain roads, and small communities where life still follows the rhythm of farming, family, church, and the sea. In some places, you can feel how difficult island life can be. Limited water, dry land, and a constant dependence on what the ocean, the market, or relatives abroad can provide. Then there is Cidade Velha, only a short distance from Praia, but emotionally much older. Once called Ribeira Grande, this historic town is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most important places in Cape Verdean history. Its old fort stone streets, churches, and colonial ruins carry the memory of Atlantic trade routes' European expansion and the painful history of slavery that shaped the islands for centuries. Originally known as Ribeira Grande Cidade Velha, became the first European colonial settlement in the tropics. Portuguese ships stopped here between Europe, Africa, and the Americas, turning the town into a base for trade navigation and empire. But its beauty carries a heavy past. Cidade Velha was deeply connected to the transatlantic slave trade, and places like the old Pelourinho, the stone pillory in the town square, still remind the visitors of that painful history. Above the town stands Fort Real de São Felipe, a fortress built to defend the settlement from pirate attacks. From up there, you can look down over the rooftops, the valley, the sea, and the same harbor where ships once arrived from distant worlds. The view is beautiful, but it is also unsettling because you begin to understand how small Cape Verde helped connect continents. That is why Santiago matters so much. It holds the working capital, the old colonial past, the markets, the beaches, the nightlife, the beauty of its people, the villages, the hardship, and the daily life that many visitors never see. Some islands are shaped by the sea. Fogo is shaped by fire. The name itself means fire in Portuguese, and the moment you approach the island, it becomes easy to understand why. Rising from the Atlantic Ocean, Fogo looks darker, sharper, and more dramatic than the peaceful beach image many people have of Cape Verde. This is not the soft resort face of the country. This is Cape Verde at its most volcanic. At the center of the island stands Pico do Fogo, the highest point in Cape Verde, rising about 9,281 feet above sea level. The volcano dominates almost everything around it. From far away, it looks like a giant black cone placed in the middle of the ocean. From up close, it feels even more powerful, a mountain of ash lava and silence. But the journey into Fogo usually begins more gently in São Felipe, the island's capital. Like many towns in Cape Verde, São Felipe does not overwhelm you with famous attractions. Its charm is slower. You can spend hours walking along cobblestone streets, passing colorful buildings, quiet corners, and beautifully preserved colonial houses known as sobrados, elegant reminders left behind by wealthy Portuguese families. From there, the island begins to open up. A short half-day trip by minibus towards São Jorge reveals a greener and more surprising side of Fogo. The road climbs above the coast, giving you wide views of lush vegetation and the endless Atlantic below. You pass small settlements, tiny bridges over streams, and dramatic cliffs that seem to stretch forever. And at some point, you start wondering how an island this rocky, steep, and volcanic can still feel so alive. Near São Jorge, another strange scene appears at Ponta da Salina about a mile away. While swimming at Praia da Bila in São Felipe can be dangerous because of unpredictable currents. The natural pools at Ponta da Salina can be an unforgettable stop. Even if you do not swim, it is worth watching local boys leap from lava rock arches into the deep blue water below. Then the road leads toward the island's most powerful landscape, Chá das Caldeiras, the community living inside the volcanic caldera. This is where Fogo becomes almost otherworldly. Many of the black lava blocks from the 2014 eruption still lie exactly where they fell. Some lava bombs were said to be up to 13 feet across and were thrown hundreds of yards from the erupting crater. The destroyed lava fields are difficult to understand until you see them in person. Acres of black volcanic rock, twisted into strange shapes stretching in every direction, like a scene from the moon. There is almost no color here, except where local people have planted vines, small crops, or a few bright flowers against the darkness. And that contrast is what makes Chá das Caldeiras so powerful. It is not only a place of destruction, it is also a place where life keeps returning. Ancient lava flows have slowly broken down into ash and fertile soil, allowing coffee plantations and vineyards to grow in one of the most unlikely farming landscapes in West Africa. Fogo is especially known for its wine, particularly its red wine. Some bottles come from chá produced by a cooperative of growers inside the crater, while others are called manekom, made in smaller quantities by independent local winemakers. Away from the crater, São Felipe still looks out over the Atlantic toward the nearby island of Brava, with old streets, ocean views, and the quiet rhythm of island life. But even in its gentler corners, Fogo never lets you forget what created it. The black earth steep roads, crater walls, and towering cone of Pico de Fogo are always there watching over the island. If Fogo feels like an island built by fire, Santo Antão feels like an island carved by mountains, clouds, farms, and impossible roads. This is one of the most dramatic islands in Cape Verde, and may be the biggest surprise in the whole country. Because when many people imagine Cape Verde, they picture dry beaches, desert wind, and flat resort towns. But Santo Antão is different. Here the land suddenly turns green, steep, and wild. The journey usually begins by ferry from Mindelo on the island of São Vicente. As the boat crosses the Atlantic, Santo Antão slowly appears ahead, not as a soft tropical island, but as a wall of mountains rising from the sea. The coastline looks rugged, almost defensive, as if the island does not want to reveal what is hidden inside. Then the road begins to climb. One of the best places to feel this mountain life is Corda, a rural village sitting about 2,625 feet above sea level. Here, the slopes are covered with terraced fields created by local people over generations. These terraces are not just beautiful, they are a survival system built to protect the steep hillsides and make space for crops like corn beans, sweet potatoes, and other basic foods. After the summer rains, the area becomes especially beautiful with flowers covering the hills and the whole village feeling softer, greener, and almost hidden from the rest of the world. The most famous valley is Paul. Valley, a deep green landscape of farms, palms, stone houses, and narrow paths winding through the mountains. People grow sugarcane, coffee bananas, mangoes, and vegetables on slopes that look almost too steep for farming. But life here has always depended on using every piece of land the island gives. And this is where Cape Verdean food begins to make more sense. When you visit Cape Verde, do not expect luxury cuisine first. Expect simple food created by people who learned how to survive on dry volcanic islands for centuries. The national dish is cachupa, a slow-cooked stew made with corned beans, cassava, sweet potatoes, squash, and whatever meat or fish is available. There are two main versions. Cachupa rica or rich cachupa includes more pork, sausage, bacon, or chicken, and is often served during holidays and family gatherings. Cachupa pobre or poor cachupa uses little or no meat and depends more on vegetables and grains, showing how generations survived through drought shortages and hard island conditions. But the leftovers are almost just as famous. The next morning, yesterday's cachupa is fried into cachupa refogada, often served with a fried egg. For many Cape Verdeans, this is one of the most loved breakfasts in the country, the kind of dish people actually look forward to eating a second time. And of course, no traditional island meal feels complete without grogue, Cape Verde's famous sugarcane liquor. It is especially tied to Santo Antão, where small family-owned distilleries have produced it for generations. Today, some travel routes even take visitors to traditional distilleries, where you can see how this strong local drink is made from sugarcane. Some bottles can go above 40% alcohol, making grogue one of the strongest local spirits you will find anywhere in West Africa. If Santiago shows the working heart of Cape Verde, São Vicente shows its soul. This island is drier, flatter, and more urban than Santo Antão, but it carries something that no mountain or volcano can fully explain: the sound of Cape Verde itself. And that sound is strongest in Mindelo, the island's main city and one of the most important cultural centers in the country. Mindelo sits beside a deep natural harbor with colorful buildings, old colonial streets, cafes, bars, fishing boats, and the wide Atlantic opening in front of the city. During the day, it feels relaxed and artistic. People move slowly through the streets, music drifts from small shops, and the waterfront gives the city a mix of African warmth, Portuguese history, and island life. But Mindelo is not famous because it is big. It is famous because it feels alive. This is the city of morna, the most iconic music of Cape Verde. Morna is slow, emotional, and often filled with longing, the sound of people who love their islands, but also know what it means to leave them. In Cape Verde, that feeling is often called saudade. And no name is more connected to that sound than Cesaria Evora, the legendary singer from Mindelo, known around the world as the Barefoot Diva. She performed without shoes, with a voice full of memory, warmth, and distance. Through her music, many people around the world discovered Cape Verde for the first time. Walking through Mindelo, you can feel why music grew so strongly here. The city has theatres, bars, live music venues, street festivals, and a nightlife that feels more intimate than Praia, but deeply artistic. a normal evening can begin with dinner near the harbour, continue with live music in a small bar, and end with people dancing to Coladera Funana Kizomba or Batuque. Mindelo is also famous for its carnival, one of the most colourful celebrations in Cape Verde. During this time, the streets fill with costumes, drums, dancing parades, and a strong Brazilian influence mixed with local Creole identity. For a few days, the city becomes loud, bright, and full of movement. But São Vicente also has a quieter side. Close to the city centre is Laguinha Beach, one of Mindelo's main attractions. It has a beautiful stretch of sand and sits only about 15 to 20 minutes on foot from the centre, making it an easy escape from the streets. There are popular bars at both ends of the beach, so you do not need to return to town just to eat lunch or grab a drink. From Laguinha, you can also see Ilhéu dos Pássaros, often known locally as Ilhéu do Geu, a small island with its famous lighthouse standing out across the water. It is one of those simple views that makes Mindelo feel connected to the sea at every moment. Cape Verde may look small on the map, but once you move from island to island, it feels like several different worlds packed into one country. One of the strangest is Buracona, also known as the Blue Eye on Sal Island. It's a natural rock pool connected to the Atlantic Ocean. Around midday, when the sun hits at the perfect angle, the water suddenly glows with a bright electric blue circle that looks exactly like a giant human eye staring back at you. Sal is also one of the best islands for water sports. The wind here is strong and steady, making it popular for windsurfing, kitesurfing, and diving. At places like Shark Bay, visitors can stand in shallow water, while small lemon sharks move nearby, a strange but memorable experience that makes the island feel more alive than a normal beach escape. The name Sal itself comes from the word salt, and that already tells you a lot about this island. Here, salt ponds sit inside the crater of an extinct volcano. The water is extremely salty, much saltier than normal seawater. And because of that, visitors can float on the surface, almost like they are in the Dead Sea. You do not really swim here. You just lie back, relax, and let the salt do the work. Another famous salt site is Pedra de Lume, which once supplied salt to Brazil. Today, it mainly serves the island itself. In the salt pans, the water can take around 3 months to evaporate, leaving behind bright white salt under the Cape Verdean sun. Then we move to Boa Vista, where Cape Verde suddenly looks like a desert country. The Viana Desert is one of the most surprising natural wonders in the islands. Imagine soft white sand dunes sitting close to the Atlantic Ocean. The sand is believed to have been carried by winds from the Sahara, creating a small desert beside the sea. It feels strange, beautiful, and almost impossible, like a piece of Africa's great desert somehow landed on a quiet island. But Boa Vista is not only about sand. Together with Maio, it also has some of the most important beaches for wildlife in the Atlantic. These islands are among the world's top nesting places for loggerhead, sea turtles. Every year, turtles come ashore at night to lay their eggs in the sand. For visitors, seeing this can feel magical, but it also reminds you how fragile island nature really is. And from February to May, the ocean brings another incredible sight: humpback whales. These giant animals migrate through Cape Verde's waters, and if you are lucky, you may see them rising from the sea, slapping their tails, or breaching against the blue Atlantic. But Sal also reveals something many visitors do not expect. Cape Verde is not as cheap as it looks from the outside. On the surface, it feels like a relaxed island destination. Beaches, seafood taxis, guest houses, and small restaurants. But because Cape Verde produces very little on its own, almost everything has to arrive by ship: food, fuel, electronics, furniture, building materials, and many everyday goods. That makes prices surprisingly high for a small island nation. A simple local meal usually costs around $5 to $10, while dinner at a tourist restaurant can easily range from $15 to $30 per person. A basic hotel room often starts around $50 a night, and beachfront resorts during peak season can climb $150 to $300 or even more. Transportation is usually more affordable. A short taxi ride within town may cost around $2 to $5, and shared minibuses are cheaper. Ferries connect many of the islands, although flights are often the fastest way to travel between them. But the biggest surprise is the gap between prices and local wages. Many local workers earn only around $300 to $600 a month, which means daily life can be expensive for residents, even when tourists then see Cape Verde as an affordable tropical escape. For visitors, a comfortable daily budget is usually around $80 to $150. Backpackers can manage with about $40 to $60 a day if they stay in guest houses, use local transport, and eat where locals eat. So Cape Verde may feel peaceful and easy on the surface, but behind the beach image is an island economy shaped by distance imports, tourism, and the real cost of living far out in the Atlantic. Cape Verde is not just a place of resorts and blue water. It is a country shaped by volcanoes, colonization, slavery, migration, drought, music, faith, football, and the endless Atlantic Ocean. Maybe that is why this tiny nation feels much bigger than its size. It has survived isolation, turned hardship into culture, and carried its identity far beyond its own shores. So tell us, in the comments, had you ever heard of Cape Verde before this video? And which island would you want to visit first? Thank you for watching and traveling with us across unseen Cape Verde. If you enjoyed this journey, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and join us again as we explore more of the world's most surprising and forgotten places. Tayun Mountain is praised as the #1 immortal mountain of the Chu or Chinchu region, a title reflecting its unmatched status in both landscape and Taoist spirituality. At the summit known as Golden Peak, the Guanyin Hall or Gwyn Hall weighs several tons, yet touches the mountain over an area of only about 65 square feet, with 3 sides opening directly into a bottomless abyss. Remarkably, Ming Dynasty builders used no cement or binding agents, instead carving deep into quartz rock and stacking stone slabs through precise mortise and groove techniques. This flexible joint structure allows microscopic movement that dissipates energy from earthquakes and violent winds, enabling the temple to remain standing for more than 500 years. Positioned at the highest point of the region, the hall functions as a natural lightning rod and has endured countless direct strikes without burning or collapsing, a survival that challenges conventional risk theories. When dense clouds engulf the Chinling Range, the lower slopes vanish from sight, leaving Golden Peak isolated like a small stone island in a sea of white clouds, creating the powerful illusion of a palace floating in the sky. Standing alone on Iceland's Elliday Island or Lady Island, this white house sits isolated between black vertical cliffs and the violent waves of the North Atlantic. In reality, it was built in 1953 as a simple survival base for puffin hunters. From a distance, the entire island looks like a natural fortress cut off from the world, with no harbour, no roads, and almost no signs of human presence. Even money becomes meaningless here, because the water supply depends entirely on a rainwater collection system connected to the roof. But even if you were brave enough, this challenge would still be impossible, because the house remains locked under the strict protection of the local hunting association. Sumela does not stand on safe ground, but seems pressed straight into the cliff, turning the mountain itself into the part that keeps the structure standing. The monastery's foundation rests on the natural rock, so the architecture here is not separate from the mountain, but almost clings to it like a giant anchor point. Looking up from the valley floor, the height of about 984 feet makes Sumela look like a strip of buildings hanging across open air, almost like a building of more than 90 floors. That location is beautiful, but not completely safe, because the risk of falling rocks once forced the monastery to close for many years to reinforce it and protect visitors. That very paradox makes Sumela a powerful symbol. The more tightly it is pressed by the mountain, the more it proves that faith can still stand firm in a place that seems impossible to build on. Lagumon is not only an offshore lighthouse, but a place where humans try to preserve a sign of life in a sea that can crush everything in an instant. The extremity of this place was carved into history on December 21st, 1989, when photographer Jean Guichard, or Jean Guichard, flew past. At the exact moment, a monstrous storm was hammering the entire tower. At the moment, lighthouse keeper Theodore Malgorn, or Theodore Malone, stepped out of the door. A gigantic wave almost as tall as a 10-story building surged in from behind and swallowed the whole lighthouse, leaving only about half a second between life and death. The lighthouse keepers had to avoid looking down at the waves for too long and always invent work to keep their minds occupied. Because if the mind slips before reason does, this tower can turn into a deadly trap. Would you dare live here alone to receive $1 million? Leave yes or no in the comments. Cliff Convenience Store hangs on a cliff about 393 feet high, turning a small shop into a sales point suspended in mid-air instead of standing on the ground. The store is only about 21.5 square feet wide, almost just enough for one employee to stand inside and arrange a few bottles of water and snacks. It sits on a via climbing route about half a mile long, where climbers must hold onto cables, handrails, and steel anchors to cross the steep terrain. The structure was built to serve climbers right in the middle of their journey, turning a very simple need like drinking water into a place to recover strength on the cliff. What leaves an impression is the visual absurdity of a convenience store appearing in a place normally meant only for safety ropes, handholds, and open space. Refuge des Cosmiques, or Refuge der Cosmica, was built in the 1930s not for climbers, but as a high-altitude physics laboratory dedicated to the study of cosmic rays. Today, reaching the hut from the Aiguille du Midi, or Aiguille du Midi cable car, requires crossing a razor-thin snowy ridge where a single misstep can mean a fall of several thousand feet into the glacier abyss. The rapid ascent from about 3,300 feet to nearly 12,500 feet in only 20 minutes creates a serious risk of acute altitude sickness, with cases of cerebral or pulmonary edema occurring directly at the hut. The structure stands on solid rock while being surrounded by permanent snowfields and slowly flowing glaciers that constantly reshape the landscape year after year. Despite the thin air and lethal environment, the refuge functions like an improbable high-altitude hotel serving hot European meals, draft beer, and even offering double bedrooms. Beneath the modern building, remnants of the original laboratory remain, and the French National Centre for Scientific Research still operates atmospheric monitoring instruments at this extreme location. San Juan de Gaztelugac is a monastery from the 10th century built atop a cone-shaped rocky island and connected to the mainland by a single winding stone bridge. The structure stands dozens of feet above sea level at the heart of the Bay of Biscay, or Bay of Bisque, where powerful Atlantic waves repeatedly crash into the sheer cliffs below. Reaching the monastery requires climbing 241 steep and narrow stone steps, fully exposed to strong winds that can surge directly from the ocean. According to local tradition, once visitors reach the church, they must ring the bell exactly 3 times to ward off evil spirits and bring good fortune. Over more than 1,000 years, the site has survived fires, pirate attacks, and constant salt erosion, demonstrating extraordinary stone-anchored construction techniques. In the lush green Emirati region of Georgia, Catski Pillar stands isolated like a stone tower, separated from the world below. This natural limestone pillar rises approximately 130 feet, towering over the Catskura River Valley, like a narrow fortress with just enough space for silence and faith. Atop the pillar are a small chapel hermit cells and remnants of an ancient monastery, identified as dating from around the 9th to the 10th centuries. To reach this place, people once had to climb iron ladders and ropes fixed to the rock face. But since 2012, visitors have no longer been permitted to climb for safety reasons. Catski Pillar is associated with the austere monastic tradition of Georgian Orthodoxy, where monks sought to leave the life below to live closer to the heavens. For many years, a monk named Maxim Kavarad lived atop this pillar, only occasionally descending, making it one of the most isolated images of modern monastic life. At the bottom of a karst sinkhole, more than 984 feet deep, Tianfu Official Post House looks like an ancient relay station dropped all the way to the bottom of the earth. Around the structure are sheer rock walls, making this place look more like a giant stone well than a group of buildings on open ground. The main access path is only about 16 feet wide enough to make anyone entering feel that every way in and out is controlled by the terrain. The structure is introduced as having origins in the year 619 during the Tang dynasty, when the post house was used to send messages, receive officials, and keep long-distance routes running. Tianfu official post house feels haunting because it is not hanging over a cliff or floating in the sea, but lies deep inside the rock where the sky is reduced to a bright opening above. Bivaco Bufa di Pereiro is often described as the loneliest house in the world. A title that reflects how the structure nearly disappears into a sheer Dolomites cliff, revealing only a small facade suspended in mid-air. The shelter is embedded inside a natural rock cavity surrounded on all sides by vertical stone walls with no conventional walking path leading to it, making it resemble a hidden doorway carved into the mountain. After decades of abandonment and roof collapse caused by avalanches and alpine storms, the site was fully restored in 2022 by Italy's 6th Alpini Regiment as an emergency refuge for mountaineers. Inside the space is extremely compact with raw mountain rock forming the walls, fitted only with 12 simple wooden bunk beds and no electricity, running water, or toilet facilities. Reaching the shelter requires advanced climbing skills, including navigating iron ladders, bolted directly into vertical rock faces and narrow exposed ledges. Along the route, climbers must cross the 27-meter Cristallo suspension bridge hanging over a deep abyss famously featured in the film Cliffhanger, turning access to this refuge into a genuine survival challenge. The Mount Fanjing Golden Temple is known as the most dangerous and spectacular cloud temple on the planet. The temple sanctuary rests on the Red Cloud's golden summit, a natural stone spire protruding straight into the sky to a height of about 7,664 feet, equivalent to a massive 770-story building. The two temples are connected to each other by a tiny stone bridge stretched across a narrow fissure at a dizzying height, looking as if it is floating amidst the clouds. To touch the Golden Temple, visitors have no other choice but to hike up about 8,000 steep stone steps. At the most treacherous sections, climbers must cling tightly to iron chains anchored directly into the cliff. This mountain is covered by thick fog and clouds for over 200 days a year, making the stone steps extremely slippery, and the slightest mistake during the climb a significant risk. Amidst the white expanse of the Arctic archipelago of Svalbard, a concrete structure juts out from the snowy mountainside like civilization's last door. That is the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, a global seed bank built deep within the rock of Spitsbergen Island, where permafrost and cold stone form a natural shield protecting humanity's food supply. Unlike isolated homes for people, this facility was created to store life in a state of hibernation. Inside rooms chilled to about 0 degrees Fahrenheit, millions of seed samples are sealed in specialized packages, resting silently on shelves like the genetic memory of fields across the world. In Svalbard, the very things that make human existence difficult, the freezing cold isolation and Arctic darkness, are precisely why this facility was chosen as the safe deposit box of the future.